for foothills.
It is wild to hear the Foreign Affairs Minister claim that they support science when the Liberals are literally attacking agricultural research. They are shutting down research centres in Lacombe, Indian Head, Guelph, Quebec City, Portage-la Prairie, and Cumberland County. Meanwhile, they spend $19 billion on consultants, $33 million on a prison farm, $22 million on beans for women for empowerment in Congo. Why is the Prime Minister dismantling the foundation of Canadian food security just to fund his foreign virtue signaling?
Right on.
The Honourable Minister to the Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. Science plays an integral role and will continue to play an integral role in this country for agriculture and agri-food. Mr. Speaker, we are maintaining our research and development presence in every single province, and the department continues to be the largest science service center in this country with 17 sites. By streamlining our research, we are prioritizing high-impact areas, reducing duplication, and better aligning our needs with our ranchers and farmers across this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member.
I love how he has to read off of a piece of paper to be able to answer that question. You think the agricultural minister would have an answer to that type of a question off the top of his head, but he clearly doesn't. Guys, today is Thursday, February 5th. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is Canuck News. I got a story today. I think it's very critical for all Canadians, to be honest. Because what's going on is, honestly, it seems like Canada is about to lose its only copper smelter. And Glencore, the Swiss mining giant that owns the Horne smelter in Rouyn-Noranda, Quebec, just suspended a $1 billion investment in the smelter itself. And so what the company is saying that it can't get regulatory certainty from Quebec on arsenic emissions targets. And Quebec says Glencore needs to meet stricter environmental standards. And technically, both sides are right. But the thing we're seeing here is that the smelter emits dangerous levels of arsenic into residential areas today. And that's real. But this thing's also 100 years old. It was made in the 1920s. So Quebec setting stricter targets without an actual transitional plan is also real, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're saying, all right, now in 2026, you got to meet the standards for arsenic emissions in the modern era, but this thing is 100 years old and hasn't really been upgraded. So now Canada is losing its only critical copper smelter capacity, not through strategic transition to modernize the facilities, but through regulatory failure and corporate blackmail. Because Swiss mining giant Glencore is suspending investment plans worth $1 billion for its century-old copper smelter in northern Quebec after the failure of negotiations with provincial government over toxic arsenic emissions. Glencore said Tuesday that it won't move forward with previous plans to modernize the Horne smelter in Rouyn-Noranda, which included $300 million to reduce pollution as well as other upgrades. The decision raises the prospect that Canada's only copper smelter will end operations, although the company says it remains hopeful that it can strike a deal to avoid that outcome. Senior political leaders in Ottawa are keeping close tabs on the situation. It is very disappointing to be potentially on the path to closure when we are convinced the Horne smelter's operations are safe for the community. Mark Bedard, Glencore's chief operating officer of custom metallurgical assets, said in a statement. We have worked in good faith and explored every option available to us. Protecting jobs and maintaining operations remain the company's top priorities, but the conditions needed to move forward simply are not in place right now. I think this is a great place to stop, because we need to be clear with what we're dealing with. This is Canada's only copper smelter. It's the only facility in the entire country that processes copper concentrate into refined copper, into usable industrial copper. It's 100 years old. It's 100 years old, guys. This isn't modern infrastructure with state-of-the-art environmental controls. This is a facility that's literally been operating since the 1920s, and it emits toxic arsenic into residential areas. So this isn't abstract environmentalism or ESG virtue signaling. This is a real public health crisis. Let's go show you the actual numbers. So the current arsenic emissions at Horne are about 44 nanograms per cubic meter at the property line, guys. And so what this really means is, and I'm going to show you here. So the World Health Organization, and I have it here. The World Health Organization has estimated that the lifetime excess risk of lung cancer is 1 per million at an airborne arsenic content of 0.7 or 0.66 Ng per meter cubed, based on traditional linear exploration from occupational studies, due to low exposure to the World Health Organization. So, what we're looking at here, essentially, at 44 nanograms, not 0.66, which is 1 in a million risk of lung cancer. We're looking at 44. This is 220 times higher than that level, guys. 220 times higher. The EPA calculates that 2 nanograms per cubic meter give you 1 in 100,000 cancer risk, which is so 22 times higher in that case. And this isn't a minor issue. These are all serious numbers, right? And the Quebec Superior Court just authorized a class action lawsuit from residents claiming health effects from the smelter. And so a 2022 Quebec Public Health Institute report said that past and current exposure to arsenic and cadmium concentrations from the facility could actually put residents at a higher cancer risk. Like, this is actual toxicity in the air. So when Glencore is saying we're convinced the Horne smelter's operations are safe for the community, it's just not true. The fact of the matter is they just don't care, right? And the emissions are 220 times higher than the World Health Organization's acceptable cancer risk level, guys. And residents are breathing this shit in every day. This is why Quebec wants stricter standards. But this is where it starts getting complicating, guys, because Quebec's approach to fixing the problem is actually a regulatory failure, right? So the company has been in talks with the Quebec government since last summer about securing the long-term viability of the Horne site, as well as a related refinery in Montreal's East End. The two parties are at odds over the targets for reducing emissions at Horne and the timeline for achieving those reductions. Glencore is looking for more clarity surrounding its environmental permitting. Authorizing a major investment to upgrade the copper smelter operations would be irresponsible without assurance that the regulatory conditions would allow the site to continue operating within a predictable and realistic longer-term framework, the company said in a statement. Horne is now operating under a ministerial authorization that limits arsenic emissions in the ambient air of the smelter's property line to 45 nanograms a cubic meter as an annual average, with a scheduled decrease to 15 Ng per meter cubed in March of next year. Glencore is asking Quebec to modify that authorization to give the company until the end of 2029 to meet that new target. It also wants the province to provide assurances it will maintain that limit through the duration of the next applicable ministerial authorization and not reduce it further. They say it's all about risk management, Mr. Bedard said in an interview Wednesday. If they're not able to give us that level of certainty in the long run that we will stay at 15, then we need to find other ways to de-risk. Glencore is exploring various solutions with Quebec, including having the province share in the risk by investing in the Horne upgrades project, Mr. Bedard said. He said the company has also been in talks with Ottawa about support. The current permit for Horne's operation requires Glencore to submit an action plan outlining measures and actions aimed at working toward emissions of 3 Ng per meter cubed, a limit in place in other parts of the province. Mr. Bedard said that's technically impossible for that facility to achieve. I want this to be crystal clear. If people are asking us to get to the 3, then we'd better shut down now, he said. So I'm going to stop here for a second, because we need to break down what Quebec's actually asking for, right? So the current limit is 45 Ng per meter cubed, right? This is dangerous. It's 220 times above the World Health Organization's levels, guys. The March 2026 target is 15 Ng per meter cubed. Glencore is asking to have that extended to 2029, right? The eventual Quebec target is that they're aiming for is 3 Ng per meter cubed, which is the standard for the rest of the province. And Glencore's position is, guys, we can't reach that 3 figure you're asking for something impossible. If that's what you're going to be asking for, we're just going to close. We're going to shut down shop. And here's the critical question, guys. Is Glencore telling you the truth, or is this just a corporate negotiating strategy for leverage that they're asking for? And the answer is it's probably a bit of both. A little bit A, a little bit of B. For a century-old smelter with outdated infrastructure, guys, hitting environmental targets for the modern day is genuinely impossible without a complete facility replacement. But Glencore is also clearly using a closure threat as a negotiating tactic. And so look at what they're asking for. Delay to the 15 target from March 2026, so in a couple months, or next month, to the end of 2029, so a 3+ year delay. Guarantee that it's not going to stay lower, that you're not going to push lower than the 15 mark for X amount of years. And Quebec should invest in the upgrades as well, and so should the federal government. Guys, this is literally corporate blackmail. Give us more time, guarantee you'll never tighten standards again, and help us pay for it, or we're going to close the copper smelter in Canada. But here's the problem. Quebec's response is equally as inadequate. And the other thing is, we're talking about all of this, national unity. No one's going to bully us into anything. There's literally a company bullying a province of Quebec and critical infrastructure for Canada right now. But we can only virtue signal and we can only give rhetoric when it comes to the U.S. But let's read this paragraph right here, because this is a telling sign as well. It says, Premier François Legault said Quebec has already offered Glencore predictability by offering to start the process of renewing its environmental permit a year earlier than planned. This represents a significant step on the part of our government, which now expects the company to proceed with the necessary investments, his office said in a statement. Guys, we need to read that again. Quebec's significant step is starting the permitting renewal process 1 year early. Guys, this isn't a transition plan. Guys, it's paperwork. They're helping them with paperwork. Where's Quebec's actual support? Where's the financial assistance to modernize a 100-year-old facility? Where's the timeline that acknowledges the technical challenges of upgrading ancient infrastructure, guys? Where's the plan for what happens if the facility can't meet that 3 target and closes? Quebec set strict standards which are justified by the health crisis, sure. But Quebec provided literally zero transition support. Guys, you just have to meet these standards. That's all it is. This is regulatory failure. And this is probably why the CAQ is on its way out of the province, because everything they've done is just a massive failure. They had overriding support to do everything to fix the province from the core, and they've done a terrible job. And this is why they're on the way out. And you can't demand a 100-year-old facility meet modern emission standards without helping it get there, especially when it's not a federal or a provincial plant. This is a private company that you've let do this for 100 years. You've let them operate like this for 100 years. It's your fault. So what's the result, guys? The result is that Glencore uses a closure threat as leverage, and Quebec is just digging in. And Canada loses its only copper smelter. Guys, not through strategic planning, literally through regulatory ultimatums that forces closure. Gonna get to the next point here. Glencore said it has been making efforts to lower emissions that between 2022 and 2024, the average arsenic concentration in ambient air measured at the Horne legal monitoring station decreased by 46.5%. Company documents state that it was about 44 ng per meter cubed last year when measured at the plant's property limits. Here it is. The global copper smelting industry is likely to face tougher challenges than ever this year because of widening supply-demand imbalances in the concentrates market, rising production risks at smelters, and unprecedented market uncertainty, according to Fast Markets Global Limited, a price data and forecasting firm for commodity markets. Mr. Bedard said Glencore is nevertheless willing to push on with Horne and its related operations under the right conditions. He said he believes Rio Tinto would share the same view. Glencore and London-based Rio Tinto confirmed last month that they were in preliminary discussions on an all-share merger. Under British takeover rules, Rio Tinto has until Thursday to make a formal offer for Glencore but the companies can request an extension. What is this that Canada's actually going to lose? Canada's going to lose the only copper smelter in the country. If Horne closes, we have zero domestic copper capacity. And why does this matter? Because copper is a critical mineral literally for anything electrical. And right now we have a data center race that's going on. You're going to need a lot of copper for that. You need a lot of gold for that too. Electrical vehicles, so every EV uses 80 or more kilograms of copper in it. For any electrical grid modernization, you need copper. And for any renewable, anything with electricity in it, you need copper. You just need it. And the global copper smelting industry is facing tougher challenges than ever, according to the article. There's a supply shortage of copper in the world. This is literally the worst time that Canada can be losing copper smelting capacity. But here's the real failure. Canada has no actual plan to replace this capacity if it closes. Where's the federal government saying, no, we need to modernize this? There's no federal industrial strategy. There's no transition plan to a modern smelting facility. There's no support for Glencore to modernize, and just hoping that a Swiss giant in Quebec can figure it out is ridiculous. We need to notice what's happening here kind of behind the scenes as well, because Glencore is in a merger talks with Rio Tinto. So we have these two foreign mining giants that are negotiating the future of Canada's only copper smelter. And where's Canada's sovereignty in this? We should ask Mark Carney, because that's all he's been talking about, how Canada is extremely acting in a very sovereign and responsible way. Where is our sovereignty when we have these corporations that are about to put the nail in the coffin for our only copper smelter in the country? Quebec sets ultimatums without transition support. Glencore threatens closure to extract concessions. The federal government keeps close tabs but does nothing. Canada loses critical mineral processing capacities, guys. It's embarrassing. We can't let this happen. And why this matters to Canadians. This is more than just the one smelter in Quebec. This is how industrial capacity disappears altogether in the country. Not through strategic decisions, through regulatory failure and corporate blackmail. And we've seen what the regulatory failure looks like in this country. We've seen it in several spots. We've seen it with building pipelines to Tidewater from Alberta. We've seen it with Nutrien, who can't get the right infrastructure, rail infrastructure from Saskatchewan to BC so that we can ship potash to Asian markets. No. They're going to go through Washington State. They're going to go through the U.S. because it's more affordable for them. That's how ridiculous our regulatory situation is and how poor our general infrastructure is. Here's what economic nationalism would actually look like. The first phase would be acknowledge the problem, guys. These guys are emitting dangerous amounts of arsenic. Residents are facing serious health risks. It's a 100-year-old facility. It has outdated controls. Everything is outdated in it. We need to renovate it. This is a real health crisis that needs fixing. That's phase one. Let's admit the problem. Phase two is the strategic transition. You work with the company on realistic modernization timelines. This should have started like 20 years ago. Provide financial support for upgrades because this is critical infrastructure. If 3 ng per meter cubed is the target, and if it's truly impossible for this facility to actually meet it, then plan for a new modern smelter. What's the problem? Ensure Canada maintains a copper processing capacity during this transition. I can't believe we're even talking about this. I can't believe this is news. And phase three is you maintain sovereignty, guys. We don't let foreign corporations dictate terms through closure threats, guys. We just can't do that. The federal government needs to take ownership of critical mineral strategy. We have this major projects office. Oh, we opened a big office. We just created more bureaucracy. Meanwhile, we have corporations threatening the only thing that's putting us on the global map for copper smelting. And if Glencore won't modernize with support, then find another operator or public build a public facility. And what actually happened? What's actually happening is Quebec is saying, meet these impossible standards or close. Here's the permit renewal for paperwork here a year early. Thank you very much. Glencore saying, give us money, more time, and guarantee you'll never tighten these standards or we close. And the federal government saying, we're watching this with a close eye, guys. What's the result? Canada, by the looks of it, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I genuinely do. But it seems like we're about to lose our only copper smelter with no replacement plan. This is industrial collapse through incompetence, guys. That's all I have for you guys today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have to think about this. I think this is a travesty. Everybody that's been following me for a while now kind of knows my sentiment towards industry. I think that Canada needs to be a industrial giant, and we have the capacity to do it because we have literally every critical mineral in the world. So I don't know why this is an issue. And on top of that, you build a manufacturing layer on top of that. This is my sentiment. This is what I believe, and that would create jobs. That would create high-paying jobs all across the country. But we are where we are, and we just have a lot of virtue signaling in our politics. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and like Cabernet. Kick your ass all hockey season. Mounties be riding horses.